Welcome to the Soul Health Mentor podcast with Nadia Kraus. Learn how to move your awareness out of your mind and into your heart so you can embody your divinity, experience joyous peace of mind, and create your most vibrant life by opening to receive your soul's sacred medicine.
Welcome back to the Soul Health Mentor Podcast. I'm Nadia Shana Kraus, your host and author of From Dreaming to Done. Today, I'm looking forward to speaking to Ellie Laliberté. Ellie is an international best-selling author and book coach who helps visionaries reclaim their voice. After decades of spiritual awakenings and deep emotional healing, she guides others through witness consciousness practices, teaching them to see clearly, release conditioning, and take their power back with compassion and presence. Welcome, Ellie. It's so wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yes, and I want to start us off with something that I recently saw. I saw you post something that was really, really powerful, a very powerful story. And I realized it was the story behind the book that you wrote, or the books that you wrote. So why don't you tell us about that? Why don't you tell the listeners and me about that post?
Sure. Yeah, so I posted the other day something that was kind of in a way risky, but at the same time, I think that I'm very ready to be all out with who I am and what kind of what I've been through in my entire life and not just, recently, because I think that I spoke a lot about like the recent years of what I've been through, but I've never really been that transparent with my childhood that much. And also because I have to be honest, it took me a long time to actually understand what had happened in my childhood years and like what were the root of my kind of wounds. um, but as you get, clarity with healing and, just go deep into the depths of your soul. I mean, at one point it's really well revealed and you understand where your emotional trauma comes from, even to a deeper level, because now you've made space and you're able to actually receive something else, right? So I do believe there's a lot of like ripening, if I can say, to be done for us to see the truth of like, oh, this is why I still have that filter.
Yes.
So I just I shared with everyone that, when I was young, I was called, too slow. And I've had people telling me that I was uneducated and seen mostly as uneducated because I was not really great in school. I also was not really interested in school in the sense where it's not that I was not trying to excel, but it's kind of like I felt, and I know it today more, which I did not know it back then, but I didn't fit in at all. Like I did not fit into that system.
Yes.
But when you're that young and you have, parents and teachers and, older people, like people from your family that are older than you, that are just conditioned to the system and really they think that that is what we should all do, is just, obey and do as everybody else is doing. They can't really guide you into your genius. And so I was dismissed, unfortunately, a lot when I was younger for my sensitivity, for my creativity, my imagination. I was called a dreamer. I was called, yeah, I was not very much seen in my brilliance, and so I had to play small
Hmm.
for most of my life. And yeah, so it was difficult because even in like my relationships, even the parents, they would even like, I remember like it was one of my ex's mother. She actually, and it's funny because today I'm like, why the hell did this guy tell me what his mother said?
Yeah.
But whatever, he had told me that his mom thought that I wouldn't go anywhere in life because I was not going to university or college. And back then I was 15, and hearing that is very difficult at that age because it just shows you again that you're failing in life. So,
Mm-hmm.
being seen by the mother of someone that I loved back then, even if I was 15, I still loved this person, not approving of me, and basically telling her son that I was a failure and I would never go anywhere. So these kinds of like comments from ignorant people, unfortunately, they leave a mark, and they kind of like showed me that, or at least I believe that I was not very intelligent when I was young. And so it was kind of like this filter that I had that didn't help me when I would go, let's say, and I started, going to jobs. So my first jobs were difficult because, again, I had this filter that I can't do anything right
Mm-hmm.
and that I will deceive other people. So learning was difficult because the thing is that in the system as well is like you are being valued by how fast you work or how fast you do things and not by the quality of the way that the person is teaching you, unfortunately. And that again was something that I was not aware, and I'm very aware today of. But yeah, I was never like, people didn't have patience with me. They wanted to just me to get things really quickly, but I was someone who had to understand, like, you needed to teach me in a way that I would be stimulated and not just like with logic, because I was such an imaginative little girl and a very sensitive girl as well. And I just wanted to be understood by you, and have someone who's present and not just someone who wants to kind of like, okay, I'll show you, and then if you don't get it, well, just don't bother me after or something. But it was, unfortunately, it was like that I was taught all of my childhood's kind of like being dismissed just because I couldn't get it as fast as other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
You've
yeah,
said so many things.
exactly.
Yeah, so many things
It's,
that I,
yeah, and it's difficult,
yes.
but it's okay because
Yes,
it's the process.
yes. And so I just want to reflect back to you. There were so many wisdom nuggets in there. So I just wanted to reflect, and I can really relate. And I do think that the listeners will be able to relate as well. I can relate to the term sensitive dreamer. I was labeled a dreamer as well. I was labeled an idealist, that I'm thinking too highly, like my visions are, I ask too much of people, I ask too much of society. And you so boldly and so courageously now ready to say, to voice these labels. Like, I was told I'm too slow, I'm not smart enough, I won't go to university, I'm not school material. And then really hearing those whispers all the time, like those whispers, like where
Hmm.
someone has told you, like, you can't do this, but you're actually this really beautiful, brilliant, sensitive, creative soul. And creativity is very different than rational thinking. It's not either or, it's and. It's using your mind
Yeah.
and your creativity. And so I want to ask you, so you had those whispers of these people that you had to do a lot of healing work and you really had to reclaim your power and your voice. But I think there was also whispers underneath the criticism, right? What kind of whispers were those?
Yeah, so I think that I was always very connected to my higher self, even if I was young. And so I had this way of staying in my power and I guess, my intuition with my imagination. So I would just go back into my world. As soon as I was kind of like being very affected by these negative whispers from the outside world, it wouldn't take so much a long time for me to retrieve back into my inner world. And I didn't know that I was doing that when I was that young. I kind of understood this later on, that I think I was doing that, and I'm still doing that today, obviously. But I wasn't doing it, consciously. I was really doing it just intuitively. And every time that I would go back into my little inner world and because I didn't have a choice, right? It was kind of like a way of for me to stay almost sane, right?
Mhm.
And so I would go into this place in this little playful, imaginative world, and I would spend a lot of time on my own when I was young, and just I guess just be me with myself with a higher consciousness. And I think that that was enough to make me stay in my light.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I kind of understood later on too, is like, oh my God, like I remember being this light despite the fact that I was always dismissed, the fact that I was always, labeled in that sense. And I remember staying this little beautiful little girl that would just want to bring light to other people, that wanted to dance, that wanted to sing. I was a singer as well. And I kind of never gave up on my light, but I feel like the light was so much stronger than everything else I was, trying to get into me and into my mind and into my heart. So I never I never lost that light. And I think
Mm.
that, that's why it brought me to where I am today. And when I started my healing at the age of 21, that light came back stronger and to tell me like, okay, now you're ready because you're old enough and you've gained maturity to really step into that light and understand that light. Where does that light come from? You know? And so, yeah, that's how the journey of healing began, or spirituality and self-growth began at the age of 21. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that is a beautiful story. And I'm so, so glad that your light was stronger than the darkness that tried to creep in, right? The dark thoughts or dark comments. And I know it sounds romantic in the moment, so I do want to honor that it's beautiful, and I say it sounds romantic because it is beautiful. And then there's this other part, right? There's this other part where it's hard. It's hard when those labels keep coming back. So how did you clear those filters that told you you're a failure?
Well, it took a long time because I do believe that we have a level of readiness to be able to heal things, like I was explaining early on. You can't really understand everything at once because if you would, I'm pretty sure that everybody would almost die. So much that there is a lot of repressed energy, repressed emotions inside of us. It cannot just bubble all at once. So
Hmm.
I think that life is well made where there are levels of readiness to accept certain things that can now come up to the surface and can be observed. So during my entire 20s, it was not about integration. It was about learning, learning who I am, but especially being very curious as what is life supposed to look like other than what I've experienced all of my teenage life and my childhood. What can I create now that I'm at this level where I'm independent, I'm an adult, and I don't have, all of that system now. I'm out of the system. I was out of the system, the school system, which was very, I was very happy about that. And the most, I just have to say, that's the funniest thing. The funniest of all of this is that I decided at the age of 20 to go and work in school as a school a teacher's aide.
Oh, wow.
Wonder, right? Went back for a year, and that just like opened me up so much to tell me like, wow, okay, you are now going to be working for yourself for the rest of your life. You can no longer go into a system with all of these these rules and these. I was not
Construct.
made for being in a box ever. I was just not. So that was like the tipping point for me to say like, okay, I no longer am going to be working for someone else. I will work for myself. I'll find a way. I'll be creative and I will be my own boss. That was a really good breakthrough, but I guess I needed to go back to school to really be reminded of that, of like, oh, okay, it's clear now that I'm not meant to be in a box. So right after that, it was for me, it was now time to learn on my own, not to be told what I should learn, what life should look like, what you should do, where you should go, how success looks, to be measured in a certain way. Now it was for me to define what is life supposed to be? What is this life that we are meant to How are we meant to thrive and really experience life? So reading books after books after books on spirituality, um, anything that had to do with philosophy, ancient philosophy, I just was eating everything up. And I know that at that time, again, I was at a level of awareness that I needed to be curious and open to see different kind of ways of looking at life, whether it's different religions, um, whether it's different ways of going about with psychology or philosophies. I just wanted to eat things up, and I was open and I was not getting attached necessarily to anything, and I was just like really just enjoying all of this beautiful wisdom from like so many brilliant people, right? Like Wayne Dyer, Eckhart Tolle, and then even Tony Robbins I loved, and then older philosophers like Neville and Napoleon Hill and all. Anyways, I went down a lot of rabbit holes. So
Yeah.
my 20s was all for that. And as much as I thought, this is something that's important, I think, to everybody to understand. As much as I thought that I knew a lot, I didn't know shit. And the reason I say that is because even if you read the books and you gain all of this information, you will not know about any of these things until you actually need all of these practices for you to integrate inside of you. But for you to integrate
Oh,
inside of you all of these things, you have to awaken to another level of awareness. And that only happens, unfortunately. And if it doesn't happen like that for other people, my God, I just, wow, you guys were really, really lucky or fortunate. But it happens when you have a very big event in your life that makes you bring you down to your knees, and then you're like, oh my God, I know nothing about my life. I have to disidentify completely with what I thought I knew about who I am. And this is what happened when I was 30.
yeah.
So I lost everything when I was 30.
So
And
we'll
another awakening.
Yeah, we'll get to that at 30.
Yeah,
So I
for
just want
sure.
to reflect what I heard. So it sounds to me like that you were able to rewrite the failure filters by first gaining different knowledge. So
Yeah,
childhood and school, it was all this knowledge of the system, right? The system, this is how you're
yeah,
supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to study. This is what grades you're supposed to get. Then you're supposed to go to college. Then you're supposed to get this job and have this much money and buy a house and all that. And so you were
yeah,
feeding your heart and your soul and your being with all this inspirational knowledge, all of this, hey, there's a different world out there. There's a completely
yeah,
different world. There's a world of the potential that is you and uniquely you and your creativity and your
mhm.
sensitivity. And then came the dark night of the soul. Then came everything
Absolutely.
crashing down, and then all the things you studied and learned, then it was about implementation, and I call it embodiment. So I call it, if mindset is king, yeah, that's great, but embodiment is queen. Like without
Oh yeah.
queen, there is nothing. And so tell us
Yeah.
about what happened at 30.
Yeah. So at the age of 30, I had a sudden separation. I lost my business with my ex-husband. So I've been with the same person for the last 12 years. I was married when I was 25, doing the things that we do, like everybody else. You marry young and then you think about kids. We were even trying to have kids for a year and it was not working. Um, and yeah, I just pretty much lost everything that you can be that I was familiar to. That's how I'm going to say it. So that comes with, wow, okay, I was really identified with this life. Now, what do I do of my life? Because I now know nothing of this new life that I'm going to be stepping into by myself for the first time. So it was very, very scary because it was the first time in my life that I was actually alone.
Mm,
And but it was the biggest gift that I could be given because I needed to know who I was on my own and to discover like this power that was within me. and this resilience that I was going to build, right? Because I had not built the resilience yet. The building of the resilience was happening like at the beginning of my 30s. And so yeah, it was a lot about survival mode, unfortunately, in that time, but it was about a lot of healing as well, because I wanted to get out of survival mode. I didn't even know that, I was living in that kind of like fight or flight mode, even if I was comfortable in a marriage for the last 12 years. But we're conditioned that way, right? And so I needed to dive from that identity. And that happened a little later on because at the beginning, when that happened, I was in shock mode. So trying to integrate things when you're in shock, it doesn't work well. Even if I had all of the tools, I still needed to find a way to survive. So it took me about, I would say, until 2020, because that happened 2018. So about 2 years later, when I really, really, really had to go deep. I was ready now. Another level of readiness to go and heal. Now
Mm-hmm.
it was about healing the trauma, the childhood trauma, the emotional pain, and really understanding my patterns, where did they all came from for relationships, for because now I was, on my own. When I was on my own, right after I got separated, my first instinct was to get back into a relationship. I thought that I was good. I thought that I was like, no, I don't need to be on my own. Like, I got this. I'm good in relationship. This is, yeah, okay. We weren't together anymore, and I was blaming it all on him. But really, I had big ass patterns,
Mm-hmm.
relationship patterns, and they came from my childhood. They came from the very first boyfriend that I've ever had and the way that I was treated, and then repeat the same cycle and whatever. So that took me, that took a lot for me to go really deep, and I needed a coach back then. I was not
Mm-hmm.
even open to being coached until then, because I thought that I knew a lot because I read all the books. But then when you really have to be authentic and get deep inside of you, like you have to open up to have some guidance. And so had wonderful coaches that were very, very direct with me with tough love, and that's what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And went really deep for like a good 2 years. Another dark night of the soul, mainly, went into, and not a lot of people know this, but I went into like suicidal thoughts, depression for sure, but it was all part of the process. I needed to go that deep. I needed to go and understand, like, okay, I'm dying. Like, I'm not physically dying, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm dying of an old version of me, and that hurts. And
Yes.
that's scary, but I have to
Yes.
go through it. So yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing all that. It's so important that we talk about these things. And I can relate because I've had dark nights of the soul as well, and they are not fun. And you think the world is ending, and you literally are like this
Yeah.
old identity that you've carried this long. It's just dying because you're actually trying to rebirth yourself to a new version, but you don't know it at the time. And then
Yeah.
was that the time that then birthed your book, which you wrote, which is Letters from You to You? No, that didn't come out of that?
Not even. Not even. No. My book only came out in 2023. So I was doing intense work. So from 2020, and I think everybody in 2020 was doing a lot of inner work, right? Because COVID hits, you don't have a choice. You got to go within, it's time. But for me, it was very intense that time. And from the 2020 to about 2022, I would say, I was just going really deep, and just going through all of the patterns, being triggered over and over again by people outside of me, whether that was in my business, because I had built a new business in 2018, actually, and it was an Airbnb management that I'd done that from scratch on survival mode. But yeah, trying to keep that business alive again, where that business started from an energy of lack, right? So
Yeah.
it couldn't really be sustained. If I wanted to improve my life and getting out completely of survival mode, I needed to let go of that business. But then 2023, I would say business was really not going well. And I was understanding that even if I was putting so much effort, like the hustling and the pushing and, trying to chase people and clients and all that, like nothing of that was working anymore. Like I was exhausted. I just knew that I needed to I needed to die from another level, like another version of me, which was the hustler, the
Mm-hmm.
one who wanted to make things happen, the one who wanted to control, and all of that was still there, right? Even if I had gone through a lot of emotional healing of my childhood, my past, that version of me was still there, and I needed that to die too. So 2023 was where I had to surrender, a very deeper level of surrendering now because I was ready for that. I made space. So now it's like, oh, all right, ready for that now. And that's where the book came to me because I knew now that I had no more moves. I absolutely did not know what to do with this business anymore, and it was killing me. And I was feeling, again, I was still alone in that time. I was not in a relationship, so I was still carrying everything on my shoulders and just bringing myself into a lot of debt and a lot of stress and just, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing anymore, and I needed help. And it was the first time in my life that I was actually asking for help to my guides. That was
Mm-hmm.
the first time that I was actually very in tune with, okay, now I know you guys are all around me. I need help. I need to figure that, like, I don't want to figure this anymore. I don't want to work so hard at trying to figure my life. I don't know what to do anymore. Please just bring me help. And I surrendered enough to be an empty vessel to receive all of the information that I received in that book and the way that I received it. And I had
Oh,
time because I was no longer, the business was not going well. So I
yeah.
didn't have much to do. And it was in transition. I was not finding any other work. So it just came to me in a meditation. It told me, you got a second book to write because that was my second book. And it said, you have to write it in this way. And this is the title and I want you to let it in. And I just
Yes.
did like, okay. So that was another experience of healing because now is like, I'm getting out of the way completely.
I
My
love
ego
this.
out.
Yes, I loved hearing I love this and I loved hearing your story because what really landed for me right now is, and I don't know if you realize this, and that's why I wanted to reflect it, because sometimes, you don't see the forest for the trees. But listening to your
Mhm.
story from starting from childhood, and then I asked you, I forget how we got there, where you shared that you were always so highly connected to your light and to your higher self. Writing that book feels like such a full circle moment, and even like a moment of completion because letters from you to you. Tell us about that book.
Mhm. So the title was received in a meditation, and I didn't know, and I swear to you, like I would have never chosen that title because letters, why letters? Like it didn't really make sense at the time where I kind of was doing that. It didn't make sense, the letters. It made sense afterwards because I understood that I loved actually writing letters in my life. I'm a big romantic, and I used to write letters to all of my boyfriends, and they were always really long. I was someone who loved, writing letters. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense for my personality. And yeah, it basically just told me I needed to write letters from the perspective of your higher self. So when you are reading the book, it's as if your higher self is speaking directly to you. And obviously, my higher self was speaking to me, but I was just translating everything on paper. But
Mhm.
as much as it was speaking to me, it was also speaking to everybody else because we are seriously so similar in all of our lives. We've been through very similar conditioning, there might be a little bit of varieties, but we've been through, a lot of the same things in our conditioning. And so it was a book that was kind of really cool because the way that the letters were flowing is that all of the first, I would say, 10 letters, and I didn't know that I was doing that, by the way, when I was writing. I had no idea what I was doing. These things have been reflected to me afterwards from readers. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool. But all of the first letters, they're all letters that you go inside to really understand your conditioning. Like, how we get attached to like we're in attachment, right? We identify with attachment. We think that attachment is love. And so the triggers, understanding what are triggers, what are emotional triggers, why do I get triggers? Like what does that happen to me? Like the observing, and again, witness consciousness has to do with that, and it's inside my entire book in a way, but it was really to understand the way that you have been lied to almost in all of the first a couple of letters, but with a lot of compassion, very direct, but compassion and love, that your inner being is just making you heal in those moments where you're understanding something deeper about yourself that no one would have dared to tell you. So these are the first letters. And then it's beautiful because number 11 is the letter that kind of like brings you to merge with your higher self. And it shows you, what does it look like once you've healed? What does it look like on the other side? And so
Beautiful.
how do you perceive life? Like, what do you see? That, like, even the colors, the way that you eat, when you're present, when you're in stillness, what does it feel like to live as your higher self? And then all of the other letters until letter 21, because I have 21 letters, they are all on the other side. Like, what is ultimate joy? Who is really your soulmate? You're your own soulmate. So now understanding even love from this perspective, right? And so it's kind of like abundance on that side and lack on the other side in a way, but it's filled with love and just really deep compassion, self-compassion. And people told me that some of them had to stop after letter number 10 because they were like, ugh, it just hit me. And then they continued after, but they got really, really triggered. And they said, it's good that I got triggered because I needed to get triggered. These are truths that you don't want to hear, right? Your ego doesn't want to hear, but your soul is screaming at you to hear it, right?
Yes.
And then, yeah, so the rest of all of the letters are there to really just make you see how, when you really go through that dark night of the soul and really choose to go heal, even though it's really, really uncomfortable, there is so much beauty on the other side of it because you change the way that you see your outside world because you've made space in your inner world. You've made room to be with your inner world, and you stop relating on what you're seeing in the outside world and your identity and identifying with the outside world. So it was a great experience, and I still love it. Even if it's been 2 years that I've written it, it's still very relatable, and I think
It's
it can help a lot of people for sure.
Yes, it can help most definitely. So I really want we could talk for more time because this has been so interesting to hear your story. I do want to wrap us up, and for the listener, I'm just going to reflect a little bit how I perceived hearing your story. So I could really feel like it was a heroine's journey, right? It was being told that you're too slow and you'll never make it, like you won't succeed in life, to having the courage to do the thing that you have to do when you're going through the dark night of the soul. And then the moment your book was born, how beautiful it's such a completion moment and such a full circle moment. And I also feel freedom, right? Freedom from that
Mhm.
old life, from those old shackles. So for the listeners, if you've related to Ellie's story and to the dark night of the soul and to triggers and to struggling and to really desiring healing, I so recommend that you get Ellie's book, and I will make sure to share Ellie's link tree and her website in the show notes. But Ellie, tell us your website. What is your website?
Yeah, so if people want to go, they can go on lettersbyellie.com, and they will see there multiple of things. I'm also a book coach, and a book coach actually with Lucky Book Publishing, the company that published my book and yours, and I'm your book coach, which is awesome. So all of this information is on the website, plus my book that you can find on Amazon and audiobook as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here today, Ellie. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I'm so happy for you as well, and eager for your book to come out. Like,
Thank you.
yay! All very
Yay.
aligned.
Thank you for listening to the Soul Health Mentor podcast with Nadia Kraus. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review at Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are playing.